Have you ever looked around and wondered, why do the people who cause the most harm seem so skilled at getting away with it? Why do those who lie, manipulate, and drain your energy always find new ways to sneak into your peace? The truth is, darkness doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sometimes it sits right next to you, slowly unraveling your strength without ever raising its voice. But here's what the Stoics knew: no one can steal your peace unless you hand it to them. And wisdom, when sharpened, becomes the greatest defense against cruelty. You don't need to shout. You don't need to fight fire with fire. You need clarity. You need strategy. You need to rise in silence and strike with understanding. In this video, we'll uncover 8 powerful tactics to help you navigate the shadows with calm authority, not to destroy others, but to protect your soul. Stay with me, because your peace is worth far more than their chaos. Tactic number 1. Master the art of silence. In a world obsessed with reaction, silence has become a rare and misunderstood power. But the Stoics knew what most people forget. True strength often comes not from what you say, but from what you refuse to say. Silence, when wielded with intention, is not absence. It's presence. It's a form of control so deep and so composed that those who rely on chaos to dominate others are left powerless. Toxic and manipulative people thrive on provocation. They bait you with insults, push your emotional buttons, and wait for your anger to become their leverage. They want you to fight, because the moment you do, they've won. But when you meet their noise with stillness, when your face remains calm, your voice silent, your spirit unmoved, they are left grappling with their own emptiness. Silence in that moment becomes your sword and your shield. Stoicism teaches us that self-mastery begins with restraint. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion. That doesn't mean you lack perspective. It means you don't allow every passing disturbance to earn a reaction from you. You choose your battles, and sometimes the wisest battle is the one you never engage in." When you respond to disrespect with silence, you're not submitting. You're asserting your worth without lowering yourself. You're saying, "I am not available for your chaos." This kind of silence isn't passive. It's deliberate. It's built on the understanding that not every insult deserves a reply. Not every disturbance deserves your peace. And what happens when you remain unmoved? The person trying to provoke you begins to unravel. They can't manipulate someone who won't respond. They can't distort words that were never spoken. Your silence becomes a mirror they can't control, and that terrifies them. There's a deeper reason the Stoics valued silence. It clears the noise not only around you, but within you. In silence, you gain clarity. You see through manipulation. You rise above petty battles and anchor yourself in reason. And from that place of clarity, your response, if ever needed, will be grounded, unshakable, and powerful. So the next time someone tries to bait you into conflict, remember this: your silence is not a retreat. It is a refusal to let them rent space in your mind. Let your stillness speak. Let your peace confuse them, because the loudest message you can send is delivered without a single word. Tactic number 2. Set unbreakable boundaries. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the very foundation of self-respect. In the eyes of the Stoics, setting a boundary is not about pushing people away. It's about protecting what's sacred: your peace, your clarity, and your moral integrity. A life without boundaries is a life lived at the mercy of others, tossed by every whim, manipulated by every demand, and drained by every voice louder than your own. But when you draw that line with quiet conviction, you declare to the world, "This is where I end, and chaos does not begin." And that is not arrogance, it is wisdom. Toxic people despise boundaries because they dismantle control. They prod guilt, twist, and invade, hoping you'll flinch, that you'll retreat. But the moment you reinforce your boundary, not with rage, but with resolve, you reveal a power they cannot comprehend. A power rooted not in defiance, but in self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Boundaries are the way we color our lives with intention. They define what we allow to shape us and what we refuse to be shaped by. Understand this setting. A boundary means nothing if you're not willing to stand by it. It's not a line drawn in the sand, but one carved into stone. Toxic people will accuse you of being cold. They'll say, "You've changed that. You're selfish or cruel." But protecting your peace is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's saying, "I am no longer available to be drained. I am no longer a character in someone else's drama. I belong to myself." And that includes boundaries with yourself, because sometimes the hardest violations come not from others, but from within, from the parts of you that crave approval, that fear, loneliness, that whisper, "Just one more chance." Stoicism teaches us discipline not as punishment, but as liberation. To hold yourself to your own standard, even when it hurts, is the purest form of freedom. Make no mistake, upholding boundaries may cost you people. But the ones who leave were never there to love you, only to use you. And those who remain, they will respect you more. Because boundaries don't just teach others how to treat you, they teach you how to honor yourself. So when you set unbreakable boundaries, you are not shutting the world out. You are opening space for the right people to step in. People who see your worth without testing it. People who meet you with respect, not resistance. And when you live that way, with clear lines, quiet strength, and unwavering standards, you are not just protecting your peace, you are reclaiming your life. And that in itself is an act of power. Tactic number 3. Refuse to play their games. Toxic people don't seek resolution, they seek control, and the way they gain it is through subtle games designed to pull you into their storm. Blame, manipulation, gaslighting, cruelty dressed as concern. But here's the truth. The moment you respond, the moment you try to explain, defend, justify, you've already stepped into their arena. And in that arena, they've rigged every rule to ensure you lose. The most powerful decision you can make is to refuse to play. Look them in the eye, not with anger, not with fear, but with clarity, and let your silence say, "I see through you, and I do not accept the invitation." Stoicism teaches us that our strength lies in what we control: our mind, our choices, our response. You don't need to chase their approval or correct their lies. That chase is the trap. They want you, desperate, flustered, reactive, because your reaction gives them relevance. But when you don't respond, when you remain calm, grounded, and untouchable, you strip them of their illusion of power. You remind them that your peace cannot be bartered with chaos. It's not passive, it's not avoidance, it's an act of inner dominance. And yes, it takes immense discipline, because toxic people know exactly which buttons to press. They accuse you of things you never did. They twist the narrative until you're tempted to scream the truth, just to be heard. But you must remember, truth doesn't need to scream. It only needs to stand. Their games only work if you agree to the terms. And when you step outside of their framework, when you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding, you win in a way they cannot comprehend. Refusing to engage is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is emotional sobriety. It's choosing not to drown in someone else's storm. Let them throw their accusations. Let them twist their stories. Let them play their tired games. You owe them nothing. You do not need to fix what they've broken. You do not need to fight battles that were never worth your energy. Your silence is not submission, it is liberation. So the next time someone tries to bait you with drama, remind yourself, I don't have to respond. I don't need to prove anything. I don't play games with people who confuse cruelty with connection. That decision to not engage is the quiet revolution that will free you. Because in that moment, you are no longer a piece on their board. You are the one walking away from it. Tactic number 4. Turn their negativity into fuel. When someone tries to break you, they're handing you a choice. One path leads to resentment and defeat. The other to mastery, to resilience, to the quiet fire of someone who refuses to be defined by another's bitterness. And this is where Stoicism reveals its deepest truth. You cannot always choose what comes your way, but you can choose how you alchemize it. Negativity is energy, and like any form of energy, it can be transformed. The insults, the doubts, the subtle sabotage, they don't have to poison you. They can fuel you if you decide to let them. You see, toxic people thrive on reaction. They want you to bend under the weight of their criticism. They want you to feel less so they can feel more. But every time they throw darkness your way, you have an opportunity to create light. That criticism, use it to sharpen your discipline. That disrespect, let it strengthen your self-respect. That doubt, let it drive your focus deeper, your purpose sharper, because nothing unsettles toxic people more than the person who refuses to be broken. And let's be honest, it's not easy. It takes strength to stand in the storm without letting it soak into your soul. It takes courage to hear their mockery and still move forward in silence. But strength, real strength, is forged in the fire of adversity. It is built not when life is kind, but when life is cruel, and you rise anyway. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the obstacle is the way, the insult becomes the lesson, the hatred becomes the catalyst, the resistance becomes the reason you grow. So the next time they come for you, mocking, doubting, undermining, don't respond with anger. Respond with progress. Let your results be your reply. Let your peace be your protest. Let your life become the proof that you were never defined by their judgment, that you never needed their approval to thrive. And in doing so, you don't just elevate yourself, you inspire others who've been wounded by the same cruelty. Because in turning their negativity into fuel, you become more than untouchable, you become unstoppable, not by becoming like them, but by becoming everything they hoped you'd never be: calm, clear, powerful and full of purpose. Their hate fades, your fire remains. That's the Stoic way, and that's how you rise. Tactic number 5. Guard your mind like a fortress. Your mindset is not just a state of mind. It is the fortress that guards your peace, your vision, your ability to endure. And when you're surrounded by toxic or manipulative people, protecting that mindset becomes an act of survival, because if they can penetrate your mind, they don't need to control your actions. They've already conquered the source. Toxic people don't always come with overt weapons. They come with whispers, subtle suggestions that you're not enough, that you'll never be more, that your strength is a facade. They don't need to break you all at once. All they need is access, a crack, a moment of doubt. And once they get in their words, fester, their negativity spreads, and your clarity begins to erode. That is why you must defend your mind, as a Stoic would defend virtue without compromise. You cannot control what people say about you, but you can absolutely control what you accept as truth. You do not have to host every opinion nor internalize every critique. You are not a container for someone else's poison. You are the gatekeeper of your own mental world. Guard it wisely. Refuse entry to thoughts that diminish you. Shut the door on narratives that shrink your sense of self. Not every opinion deserves reflection. Not every insult deserves echo. And certainly not every voice deserves volume inside your mind. But this isn't about blind optimism or pretending the world is gentle. Stoicism doesn't ask you to deny difficulty. It teaches you to master your perspective within it. Protecting your mindset is not escapism. It is preparation. It's not about being untouched by hardship, but being unmoved by its attempts to define you. You do this by feeding your mind with truth, with principles, with strength, with silence when needed, with wisdom always. Train yourself to become intentional with what you consume: books, people, conversations, even your own internal dialogue. What you allow in becomes what shapes you, and if you don't decide what enters your mind, someone else will decide it for you. So, be ruthless. Filter everything. Ask, does this serve my peace? Does this build my strength? Does this help me move with clarity? If not, let it go. Toxic. People may try to tear you down, but they will never succeed if your mindset is fortified with discipline and inner purpose, because once your thoughts are under your command, the world outside can no longer dictate your worth. That is the quiet power of the Stoic, unshaken, self-possessed and untouchable. Protect your mind, and you protect everything. Tactic number 6. Forgive but never forget the lesson. Forgiveness is not the erasure of pain. It is not pretending the wound never happened. It is the conscious choice to release yourself from the chains of bitterness without surrendering the wisdom that pain gave you. To forgive is not to excuse the harm done, but to refuse to carry its weight any longer. And that in the Stoic tradition is not weakness, it is strength. Because toxic people want you to remain shackled to anger. They want their actions to echo in your mind and fracture your peace. But when you forgive, truly forgive, you deny them that power. You reclaim your emotional clarity. You walk away, not because they deserve it, but because you do. But make no mistake, forgiving does not mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting someone back into your life to do the same damage again. Forgiveness is liberation of the spirit, but forgetting is forfeiture of the lesson. You must hold on to what the experience taught you about trust, about boundaries, about human nature. That memory is not a burden. It is a compass, a reminder of who someone showed you they are and why your future must look different because of it. To forgive without forgetting is to hold the wound with dignity. It is to say, this happened. It hurt, but I will not allow it to define me. You release the resentment, but you carry forward the lesson, because wisdom lives in the space between remembering the pain and choosing not to let it shape your character. This is how you stay open to life without being reckless with your peace. True forgiveness requires strength, the kind that faces the truth without flinching. You don't suppress the anger. You feel it. You examine it, and then you let it go. Not because it disappears, but because you no longer allow it to control your inner world. That is Stoic discipline. That is emotional sovereignty. And when you forgive without forgetting, you become the one thing toxic people can't understand: free. Free from their control. Free from the prison of revenge. Free to move forward with sharper boundaries and clearer vision. Forgiveness is your release, but memory is your armor. Carry both with grace. Use both to become wiser, stronger, and more unshakable than ever before. Because forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. It is the fire that burns away what no longer serves you, and the wisdom that lights your way forward. Forgive, let go, but never forget what shaped you. That is how you protect your soul. That is how you rise. Tactic number 7. Live boldly without apology. Life is too fleeting, too sacred, and far too uncertain to live it in the shadow of someone else's comfort. And yet so many dim their brilliance to appease the fragile egos of toxic people. They lower their voices, shrink their dreams, and betray themselves just to keep the peace. But peace built on self-denial isn't peace. It's quiet destruction. To live unapologetically bold is to reclaim your right to exist fully, to speak your truth, even when it shakes the room to stand tall, even when others wish you'd bow. And that in the Stoic sense is not arrogance, it's alignment. Boldness is not about being loud, it's about being rooted. It's about owning who you are without needing anyone's permission. Because the moment you begin living to please those who thrive on control, you become a character in their story, instead of the author of your own. Toxic people can't stand bold souls because you mirror back what they fear most: freedom. Your courage exposes their insecurity. Your light reveals the shadows they'd rather hide in. But your job is not to shrink for their comfort, it's to rise. Living boldly means walking into every room, knowing you belong, not because someone told you so, but because you know your worth. It's refusing to apologize for your passion, your intensity, your ambition. It's trusting that your path is valid, even if others mock it. And yes, that takes courage, because boldness often requires standing alone. It means choosing growth over approval. It means speaking when silence is safer. It means chasing a vision that others may never understand, but was never theirs to see in the first place. The Stoics taught us that we're not disturbed by events, but by our perception of them. So change your perception of judgment. Let it become wind at your back, not a wall before you. Let criticism become proof that you're no longer hiding. Let discomfort become the sign that you are living in truth. Because when you stop apologizing for being yourself, something powerful happens. You start attracting people who value your presence, not your compliance. Living boldly is a daily act, a commitment, a discipline, and every time you choose it, you take another step toward a life of meaning over mediocrity. So speak your truth, honor your fire, protect your joy. You don't owe this world an apology for being who you are. You owe yourself the freedom to be exactly that. Because once you do, you become untouchable, and the noise of toxic people, it fades into nothing but silence behind your stride. Tactic number 8. Surround yourself with resilient allies. There will be seasons in life when darkness seems louder than light, when you're outnumbered not by enemies, but by silence, by the absence of true support. Toxic and manipulative people thrive in that void. They want you to believe you're alone, unheard, and unloved. They want isolation to weaken you because solitude without strength can make even the clearest mind question its worth. But you were never meant to walk this path alone. Stoicism teaches us that while we are responsible for our own virtue, we are strengthened by the company we keep. And in the battle to guard your peace, nothing is more valuable than surrounding yourself with resilient allies. Resilient allies aren't just people who cheer for you when you win. They're the ones who stand beside you when you fall. They see your strength, even when you're buried beneath self-doubt. But resilient allies dismantle that illusion. They help you remember your voice. They help you stand taller. They don't just tell you to keep going, they walk with you through the fire. And when you surround yourself with these kinds of people, their presence becomes your shield. Their wisdom becomes your compass, and their belief in you becomes the fuel that gets you through even the darkest of nights. But finding resilient allies requires discernment. Not everyone around you deserves access to your inner circle. Some people only show up to feed off your energy, to sabotage your growth, to subtly undermine your peace. And if you keep them close out of habit, guilt, or fear, you risk poisoning your own progress. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is release the familiar to make space for what is truly aligned with your growth. The right people will challenge you, not control you. They will correct you with love, not shame. And they will see your potential, not your limitations. Yet, here's the truth: to attract resilient allies, you must first become one. Be the kind of person who speaks truth with compassion, who shows up not just in celebration, but in struggle. Offer the strength you wish to receive. Lead by example, not by demand, because strength recognizes strength. And when you live with integrity, you naturally draw others who do the same. And remember, resilient allies are not always the people you know face to face. Sometimes they live in the pages of books, in the echoes of timeless wisdom, in the stories of those who endured before you. Seek them out. Study their words. Let their lessons sharpen your own resolve. Legacy, too, is a form of companionship. So take a moment to look at your circle. Who truly supports your evolution? Who dares to speak life into your dreams when others stay silent? And who walks with you, not in ease, but through adversity? If your circle drains more than it strengthens, perhaps it's time to rebuild. Not with quantity, but with quality. Because when you are surrounded by resilient allies, you don't just survive the storm, you learn to walk through it unshaken. And that is when you become truly untouchable. Let me leave you with this: the path to rising above toxic and evil people is not paved with revenge or resistance. It's built with clarity, strength, and the quiet discipline of self-respect. It takes courage to hold your silence when chaos demands a reaction. It takes strength to set boundaries and mean them. And it takes wisdom to walk away from manipulation, not because you're weak, but because your peace is worth more than their attention. You outsmart darkness not by becoming like it, but by refusing to feed it. Every tactic you've learned today is a form of reclaiming your life, bit by bit, breath by breath. You master silence not to hide, but to hold power. You build boundaries not to shut people out, but to protect your light. You choose boldness not for attention, but because playing small no longer serves your spirit. This is your quiet revolution, protecting your mind, forgiving without forgetting, transforming their negativity into growth, and surrounding yourself with people who see the strength in you even when you don't. You are not here to be controlled. You are here to create, to rise, and to live on your own terms. If this message resonated with you, type "I rise" in the comments. Let that be your quiet declaration. And if you want more tools to walk this path with wisdom, feel free to subscribe. Only if it feels right. This space is for those who move with intention. You've come this far not to stop here, but to keep rising. And in the next video, we'll go even deeper. Until then, stand tall, guard your peace, and never forget your light was never meant to dim for someone else's comfort.